Hey everyone, and welcome back to Exposed, Scandalous Files of the Elite. I'm your host, Jim Chapman, and I could call this an emergency episode. It was something that I certainly was not planning on recording because, well, it didn't exist until just a few days prior to me recording this podcast, and that is a lawsuit that surfaced on Easter Sunday of all times, alleging Shannon Sharp of the sexual assault of the former ex-girlfriend. And we're going to get into this one today. Now, sometimes I come across cases that I absolutely do not really want to cover because I like the people involved. And this would definitely be one of those cases. No, I don't know Shannon Sharp personally, but I've always been a fan of Shannon Sharp. And for those not familiar with who Shannon Sharp is, he's an NFL legend. He played 14 years in the NFL for the Denver Broncos, and he also played about 3 years for the Baltimore Ravens. He is in the NFL Hall of Fame. And as a matter of fact, his NFL Hall of Fame speech is one that, in my opinion, approaches one of the best speeches of all time, if not the best speech. For me, it's between him and Deion Sanders. Both of those speeches were absolutely amazing. But the point to all of that is he is a really amazing communicator. As a matter of fact, after he left the NFL, he became a sports commentator for ESPN, and he became quite the star when he launched two podcasts, one called Nightcap, which he hosts with Chad Ochocinco, for those Bengal fans out there. And the other podcast is called Club Shay Shay. And he really hit superstardom with that podcast when he had Cat Williams on his show. This was back in 2024. And Cat Williams actually referenced Sean Diddy Combs and some things that he might or might not have some information on, which launched that case back into the spotlight. As a matter of fact, this first clip I'm going to play you, it's just a short clip. It features Cat Williams on Club Shay Shay where he referenced Diddy. Listen to this.
Now, I've had to turn down $50 million 4 times. 4 times. Just to protect my integrity and that I was telling you about. Right. Because P. Diddy be wanting to party. And you gotta tell him no. You got to tell him no. I did.
Now, I played that clip primarily because of the irony that at this point in time surrounds Shannon Sharp. That 2024 discussion regarding Diddy, well, fast forward to today, and Shannon Sharp, he's got his own accusations to defend that are similar. Not in the amount of people accusing him of something, but the accusations themselves. And Shannon Sharp has not been without his own controversies. If you go back to September 12th of 2024, Shannon Sharp was thoroughly embarrassed and apologized after going live on Instagram while having sex. Now, at the time, he spoke about it on his own emergency episode on that Nightcap podcast with Chad Ochocinco. And he said, quote, "Obviously, I'm embarrassed. I'm someone that is extremely private, and I have one of the most intimate details published online. The audio heard for the entire world to see, and I'm embarrassed for a number of reasons." And he continued by saying people count on Shannon Sharp, Shay Shay Media, ESPN. There are a lot of people that count on me at all times, even when I'm behind closed doors. And I still try to remain professional. Although I'm in the privacy of my own home, I'm very disappointed in myself, not for the act itself, because there are millions and billions of consenting age people that engage in that activity, but I have never used Instagram Live, so I don't know how it works. He said his phone started blowing up with people trying to contact him, and he began to realize what happened, and it was at that point his heart sank. And look, that happens. I'm not quite sure what he was trying to do and how he accidentally went live on Instagram. But I mean, people accidentally text one person when they're intending to text another person sometimes, and sometimes it might be something embarrassing that they're texting. So it does happen. Now, it's important to point out this was not the woman, the ex-girlfriend, that has filed the lawsuit I'm about to tell you about. It was another person he was dating. As a matter of fact, this person that filed the lawsuit at this point in time, she was obviously pissed because she thought they were in a monogamous relationship. So he was dating the girl that filed this lawsuit at the time that he went live on Instagram with a chick that was not her. And even prior to that, he did have a couple of instances that I was unaware of until I started researching this particular case. And they're not directly related to this lawsuit, but some people could say it could point to a pattern. In 2010, Sharpe was accused of sexual assault by a woman by the name of Michelle Bundy. Now, Bundy later withdrew her restraining order against Sharpe, according to her, out of fear of retaliation. Erica Evans, a former girlfriend, she filed battery charges against Shannon Sharp in 2004, and those charges were resolved through mediation. So he's had a few little scrapes here and there. Nothing, I would say, this serious. And we're going to get into the more recent allegations, and an announcement surfaced just prior, and I mean within days of these allegations coming out. And the announcement was that Shannon Sharp was set to ink a deal with a podcast network, and that deal was going to be worth over $100 million. I want to know where my $100 million deal is, incidentally. His current podcast network, in which he was under contract with, was Colin Cowherd's Sports Network, and that contract came up for renewal. Shannon, who at this point has one of the hottest podcasts in the world, he starts shopping for a better deal. And lo and behold, a 9-figure deal is waiting in the wings for him. Now, I bring that up because some theorize these allegations were released when they were, that is to say, the lawsuit was dropped when it did to blow up that deal. It's just speculation, but I gotta admit, the timing is impeccable. So let's get into the allegations in this lawsuit, filed under a pseudonym, Jane Doe, who is represented by none other than our old friend from the Diddy cases, Tony Buzbee. And it's important to keep in mind, Buzbee has been under some heavy fire lately. Remember, he represented the client that was suing Jay-Z after allegedly being raped when she was 13. And that client's story kept changing, and eventually that created some serious credibility issues with that client, and it led to the lawsuit being dropped. And so Tony Buzbee, representing this Jane Doe, the public is scrutinizing it because they are considering the recent past as it relates to Tony Buzbee. Now, as I've told you many times, these lawyers, they have an obligation to bring only legitimate lawsuits, and they are obligated to do their due diligence. You can't just file a lawsuit to harass somebody. You as a lawyer, you have to believe the facts that your client's telling you. There has to be some semblance of facts that you put forward in a complaint, and those facts have to pass a motion to dismiss test. So a lawyer has to feel that while he or she may not have all the evidence right now, the lawyer must feel confident of the account that that client is giving them. Otherwise, they're breaking major ethics rules. So the lawsuit here against Shannon Sharp starts with the quote, "A woman can say yes to consensual sexual relations with a man 99 times, but when she says no, even once, no means no." And I couldn't agree with that further. And I think the reason the lawsuit starts off with that sentence is because this is Shannon Sharp's ex-girlfriend. They've been together a lot sexually. And Tony Buzbee had the foresight to know that the first thing people are going to think is, well, why did they continually go back and forth to each other if he was raping her, etc.? And the lawsuit goes on. Defendant Shannon Sharp, a man who's accustomed to getting what he wants, completely failed to understand this basic concept. After many months of manipulating and controlling the plaintiff, a woman more than 30 years younger than he, and he's 56 years old as of today, folks, and repeatedly threatening to brutally choke and violently slap her, Sharp refused to accept the answer no and raped the plaintiff despite her sobbing and repeated screams of no. So, according to the complaint, Jane Doe worked out at the same gym that Shannon Sharp did in Los Angeles, and she was 19 at the time. She claims that he had been watching her during her workouts, and he finally came up to her and introduced himself, insisting that she give him her number. And the filing says that Jane Doe found Sharp, quote, physically intimidating. Now, let's talk about Shannon Sharp real quick. And he's 56, as I said. He don't look 56. That sucker is jacked. Big dude. Handsome guy. Go on my Facebook, look under exposed scandalous files of the elite, and I posted a picture of him. So if you're not familiar with him, look, he's a jack guy in phenomenal shape. The lawsuit continues and says over the next couple of weeks, Sharp incessantly pursued the plaintiff. He constantly approached her at the gym and attempted to contact her frequently with phone calls and text messages asking to meet up and unwilling to take no for an answer. Eventually, the plaintiff gives in and agrees to meet with Sharp outside the gym. However, before doing so, Sharp demanded that Doe sign a non-disclosure agreement, or NDA, something the plaintiff found a bit concerning. She wondered why Sharp was so insistent on her signing an NDA, so she refused. Despite his repeated efforts to get her to sign, she refused time and time again. Eventually, he dropped the lawsuit and invited her to his house. Now, the lawsuit claims that this relationship between Sharp and Jane Doe, and again, she's more than 30 years his junior, was consensual. But it was rocky. She said he'd insisted that they were exclusive, but then was caught multiple times lying about his whereabouts and who he was seeing. According to the filing, quote, by October of 2024, Sharp's behavior had grown progressively worse beyond anything the plaintiff had experienced with him before. At this point, he was insistent upon recording their sexual activity, sometimes without her knowledge. Sharp was also sharing the videos with others without her permission or knowledge. Sharp would repeatedly tell Doe that he wanted to do things to her that would make no other man want her. By this point, Sharp was no longer able to credibly maintain the relationship was exclusive. He had at this point accidentally or purposely to advance his career went live on Instagram while having sex with another woman. Sharp flew into fits of anger when the plaintiff noted his infidelity to the relationship or called him out about his affairs. What had once become manipulation, control, and intimidation now became something far more dangerous and sinister. Sharp even figured out how to get into Doe's apartment complex without her permission. Sharp made it clear that what Doe wanted was not important, that Sharp would get what he wanted when he wanted it. In October of 2024, Shannon Sharp violently sexually assaulted and anally raped the plaintiff 2 different times in Las Vegas, Nevada, blatantly ignoring her request for him to stop. He did it again in January. And now, so to give you a little more detail on these 2 particular instances, the suit described that on October of 2024, Sharp allegedly forced the plaintiff into a car, took her to an apartment, and the plaintiff alleged that Sharp forced her to perform oral sex, and Sharp grabbed her head, forcing her to look at him as she sobbed and said, "Look at this. Look at my arm. I've got chills. That's how good this is." Then, in another incident allegedly occurring in January of 2025, the plaintiff claimed that Sharp asked to come to her apartment to give her a Christmas/birthday gift. And once he got there, she alleged that he again sexually assaulted her and refused to wear a condom. So those are the two detailed incidents that she is suing for. Now, the lawsuit is seeking damages of $50 million. And I'm going to cover the breakdown of that for you quickly. First of all, she's suing for general damages in the sum of $10 million. And general damages are typically going to be emotional distress damages. She's also suing for what's known as special damages in the amount of $10 million. Special damages, likely in this case, are economic losses. They could be very hard to establish a lot of times, and economists almost have to get involved and try to figure out, in whatever situation the lawsuit is regarding, how is whatever happened to that person going to impact their future career? Are they going to have to go to therapy for the rest of their life? Are they going to have to speak to psychiatrists for the rest of their life, etc.? Is it going to cost them X amount of dollars going forward? So that's what special damages are. Really hard to figure out, and $10 million seems really steep because it's kind of hard to prove future earnings. Then they go into punitive damages, and that is $20 million they're suing for. And those damages are designed to punish someone for the conduct that they're accused of. It's not earnings that a person is losing. It's not distress caused by whatever the situation was. It's specifically, you did this to me and you need to pay by being hurt financially damages. And $20 million is a lot, but that is what she's suing for there. And then there's some statutory penalties in the amount of $10 million. I have no idea what those could be. It could be a conglomerate of things. It doesn't really go into detail in the lawsuit, but that's another $10 million. So a total of $50 million here. So this lawsuit comes out and the shockwaves slam the internet. It's all over the place. And Shannon Sharp responds, but not in the way you would think. Now, many cases when these things come out, there is a response, but typically it's a typed up response that you can tell 500 lawyers vetted. It's something like, I'm innocent of these allegations and look forward to my day in court type thing. This was shocking, the way that he responded to pretty much everybody. So Shannon Sharp came out, he released a video statement, put it on his social media, and this is what it sounded like.
To my family, friends, supporters, and colleagues, I want to speak to you directly and from the heart. This is a shakedown. I'm going to be open, transparent, and defend myself because this isn't right. This is all being orchestrated by Tony Buzbee, who has targeted Jay-Z. Tony Buzbee targets black men, and I believe he's going to release a 30-second clip of a sex tape that tries to make me look guilty and play into every stereotype you could possibly imagine. That video should actually be 10 minutes or so. Hey, Tony, instead of releasing your edit, put the whole video out. I don't have it, or I would myself. You know what happened, and you're trying to manipulate the media. The encounter in question took place during the day at her invitation, and now that appears to be a deliberate setup, coordinated by Gabby, also known as Carly on OnlyFans. Gabby and Tony Buzbee want $50 million. What they're getting is sued for defamation and trying to take me down. My career is all about real talk and honesty. I know my family and fans know exactly what this is about. And I'm going to be out there telling you whatever I need to say, just like I always do. I love all you guys. Thanks.
So if you notice, Shannon Sharp called her by name, that Jane Doe. And I'm not sure what the legal ramifications for that are, but it's clear that Shannon Sharp don't care. He put it out there. And it's obvious that he's going to attack this thing front and center, much like Jay-Z did. So it was shortly after that video statement that Lanny Davis, who is counsel for Shannon Sharp, he also released a statement. And in addition, he also released some text messages. So I'm going to review those for you now. So the statement starts, this lawsuit filed by, and he names her. I'm not going to name her, but he does. First and last name is orchestrated by her attorney, Tony Busby, and is a blatant and cynical attempt to try to shake down Mr. Sharpe for millions of dollars. It's filled with lies, distortions, and misrepresentations, and it will not succeed. In her effort to extract a large financial settlement, Miss, and it says her name, presented Mr. Sharpe with a secretly recorded video of consensual sex. We believe the video has been heavily edited and taken entirely out of context, crafted to falsely portray a consensual act as non-consensual. Miss, and it names her, has refused to provide a copy of the full unedited version of the recording to Mr. Sharpe's legal team. To set the record straight, we are releasing several of, and it names her, own explicit text messages to Mr. Sharpe that clearly indicate the nature of their relationship and that it was consensual and sexual in nature, and in many cases initiated by her with specific and graphic requests. Contrary to the allegations she makes in her lawsuit, consensual sex continued until January 2nd of 2025, the day after she asked, quote, $25,000 per cheek, as quoted above in her text messages to Mr. Sharpe. There are many other examples of text. I'm going to read those texts for you. On October 7th of 2023, she texted him and said, "Call me, I feel like fucking with you." A couple days later, October 9th of 2023, "I want you to put a dog collar around my neck and choke me with it while you're fucking me." On November 23rd of 2023, "Only if you can put that baby gravy in me, then you can do whatever you want to me." And on January 12th of 2024, "I want to put my tongue in your asshole and then marry you." These are they only included her text. They didn't include Shannon Sharp's response to those texts. I mean, it shows you they had kind of a freaky relationship, if nothing else. And this is her right here initiating things. At least that's the way it looks on the text. And we only have one side of that. I get that. But there you have it. That's what he included. Now, an audio clip also surfaced out of the camp for this Jane Doe. And I want you to listen to it, and I'll give you my thoughts after it. It's about 45 seconds in length.
I don't know. Anything I say, you're just going to like get mad at, and you're just going to hang up on me. So I feel like...
I'm not going to hang up on you. Here's what it is.
What does that even mean?
Nothing yet. You want to be with me now, so...
I don't want to be... Don't manipulate me.
Oh, Lord have mercy. If you say that one more time, I'll choke the shit out of you when I see you. Thank you.
Okay. I don't...
You know what?
Well, I don't want to be choked.
Yes, you do. I don't think you have a choice in the matter.
So on that clip, you heard some mention of choking, and you kind of heard the tone along with that. And I just don't know, but it seems to me like this is being taken completely out of context by her legal team. Just my opinion. She says something to the effect of, "Don't try to manipulate me." And Sharp response was, "If you say that to me one more time, I'm going to fucking choke the shit out of you when I see you." And then he waits for a minute and he says, "Thank you." Now, here's my thoughts on that. In my opinion, that particular conversation could be no different than if my wife's working in the yard, for example, and I say to her, "Oh, I'm going to get a picture of you working in the yard." And she says to me, "You do that and I'm going to beat the shit out of you because I don't have any makeup on." It just seemed to me like that was the way Shannon Sharp was meaning that choking comment. I could be wrong, and I'd be interested to know what your thoughts are, but that could be taken a couple of different ways. And what made me really think that was after he said it, the Jane Doe says, "I don't want to be choked." But she said it in what sounded like, to me anyway, as a very flirtatious way, kind of like a cute way. And judging by the text messages that I just read you, it was like she was trying to turn him on. Did it seem that way to you as well? And keep in mind, she's recording this. So obviously she knew she was recording this. So she's trying to get him to say something, right? Otherwise, why are you recording it? And I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts on that. But I think people on her legal team are making a big deal out of this recording, and it seems like it's much ado about nothing, really. This is just my opinion. But as you would expect, there's a response by Tony Busby regarding Shannon Sharp's legal teams responding to the lawsuit and Shannon Sharp himself. This was on April 22nd, and I'm going to read you that response from the Busby law firm. It says, Shannon Sharp released a false and misleading statement through his attorney. The statement from Sharp's newest lawyer falsely accused Miss Jane Doe of editing a video, a claim that is not only demonstrably false, but also desperate. The lawyer also suggests that Miss Doe refused to make the video available to Mr. Sharp. Again, this assertion is easily proven untrue. In fact, Miss Doe insisted he watch it. Here's what is true. Although Jane Doe never referenced any video or multiple audios that she possessed in the lawsuit that she filed, now that Mr. Sharp's lawyer has decided to broach the subject, we're going to address it. An incredibly damning video does indeed exist. The contents of that video speak volumes about Mr. Sharp and his behavior. That video, which will be played to a jury, is extremely problematic for Mr. Sharp. Sharp's team, as I anticipated, disclosed the existence of this video in an effort to try and get ahead of it. That effort will fall flat. In his statement, Mr. Sharp's attorney references several texts. Every text in Mr. Sharp's counsel released today from Jane Doe are dated prior to the alleged brutal assault set forth in Jane Doe's case. Those texts were obviously released in an effort to distract the public's attention from the allegations in Jane Doe's lawsuit. It won't work. A little history. Back in early February, our office contacted Mr. Sharp on behalf of Jane Doe and broached the subject of a meeting. Multiple conversations took place. Ultimately, a mediation occurred. Mr. Sharp was represented by different lawyers in the mediation. The mediation went on for more than 6 weeks, ultimately leading to Mr. Sharp making an incredibly significant offer to settle. Ultimately, Jane Doe refused the hefty sum offered by Sharp and instead filed this case. Prior to engaging in the mediation process, Mr. Sharp's counsel insisted on Jane Doe signing a confidentiality agreement. Mr. Sharp's attorney has now breached that agreement, while at the same time deliberately revealing Jane Doe's name, phone number, and private messages that again predate the alleged rape. That was a grievous error on Sharp's part, because now all the things discussed and revealed in that mediative process will at some point be revealed. As set forth in the filed lawsuit, Mr. Sharp's conduct throughout the 2-year relationship reveals patterns of narcissism, manipulation, and coercive control. It grew progressively worse. Sharp's new lawyer claims in his statement that the evidence paints a clear picture. He'd be right about that. It's just not the picture he wants the public to see. Although we will save the video discussed by Mr. Sharp's lawyers for the courtroom, I would suggest that Mr. Sharp's new lawyer take a moment to listen to his client at a different time on audio and ask his client for the real story, the truth. In the attached audio, which was captured near the end of the relationship, Mr. Sharp threatens to, quote, choke the shit out of Jane Doe. The contents of this clip are certainly not sexual. They are not playful. They are instead disturbing, aggressive, and dangerous. The audio paints a very clear picture of how Sharp treated Jane Doe, leading to her escape from him by leaving Nevada and blocking all contact with him. This is not the first time Mr. Sharp has faced allegations of mistreating a woman. He was also sued in New York for alleged aggressive and inappropriate behavior, detailed extensively in that lawsuit. Instead of owning up to his actions, Sharpe has chose to mislead his lawyers and the public and double down, this time by doxing Jane Doe and attempting to humiliate into silence this woman who is 30 years his junior. Mr. Sharpe's aggressive approach will instead have the opposite effect. Miss Doe is not afraid to speak the truth. She relies upon it. I look forward to presenting all the evidence in this case through the judicial process, whereas the truth matters more than a sports icon's desperate public spin. That was Busby's response. And shortly after that, Busby released a statement on X as well. And I'm going to read that statement to you. And he wrote, "On the other hand, Mr. Sharpe and his lawyers claimed that this case filed by Jane Doe is meritless. Yet, on the other hand, they now have disclosed that Mr. Sharpe offered Jane Doe $10 million in writing not to file her lawsuit. That is a true statement. Jane Doe was in fact offered $10 million to settle, but rejected the offer, choosing instead to proceed with litigation. Sharpe's team is now trying to discredit and dox her. Sharpe and his team are now, as anticipated, also attacking me. We are not going to be deterred by these tactics." So let's talk about that, because Tony Busby does make a big deal over the fact that Shannon Sharp offered Jane Doe $10 million. And what does that mean? Does that mean that he's guilty? No, absolutely not. This is the way these civil suits work typically. And some of this is in defense of Tony Busby, because some people are saying that Tony Busby is extorting, along with this Jane Doe, Shannon Sharp. Basically, they went behind the scenes and they said, if you want to make this go away, give us X amount of dollars. That's not extortion. That's exactly how civil cases like this work. All of us would be surprised at not only the amount of celebrities that this occurs with, but the amount they're willing to pay to make things go away that aren't even true. Why is that? Well, it's because even if, and take out the fact that it's a celebrity, it's really anyone in life. Even if you didn't do something, if you're accused of something like this, it is a mark on you for the rest of your life. Even if you prove you're innocent, there's always going to be people that say, well, where there's smoke, there's fire, right? Which is not true in all cases. So what these lawyers do for these people in these civil suits is they go to the accused and they make a dollar offer to make it go away. Then the lawyers, for the ones that are accused, they break down the risk versus reward. If you're worth $100 million and someone wants, say, $1 million of that, that's a small percentage of your net worth, and you can continue on in life without whatever it is they're accusing you of over your head, even if you didn't do it. And most celebrities, I'm going to say, would pay that $1 million to make that person go away. And they'd have them sign some sort of agreement to never talk about it, etc. This is really a textbook case of that in a lot of ways. Even if Shannon Sharp did not do this, and I have no direct knowledge, obviously, one way or the other, but even if he did not do it, there's a $100 million podcast contract out there for him right now that he may not get, because it came out just prior. I mean, the day before these allegations came out. And that's not fair if he didn't do this. So credit to him in a way for basically saying, I don't give a fuck. I'm not going to pay this. This is a shakedown. I don't know if it is or not, but that's his claim. Now, if it went to court, both would take the stand, a jury would listen, and whoever they found more credible, more believable, that's who's going to win the case. But there would never be any evidence outside of that. It is the true form of one person's word versus another person's. And some of you may be saying, well, how is this different than Diddy, Jim? You're hard on Diddy. You're convinced he's done many of the things he's accused of. How can you be convinced of that and not convinced in this Shannon Sharp case? Well, that one's really easy to answer. There are a ton of differences in these two cases. Number one is Diddy had over 100 different people saying he did these things, and their stories all seem to match the way that Diddy would drug all these women, what he used to drug them, the method of delivery in which he drugged them, baby oil, etc. And Diddy had a reputation for that even before all this came out, going back years. I was talking about all of this before anybody else was, any media outlet or otherwise. But most importantly, and something I noticed as dramatically different in these two cases, is Sean Combs is under criminal charges by the federal government. Remember, the federal government wins 98% of their cases. They don't bring a case unless they have hard ass evidence of what occurred. They're almost guaranteed to win criminally. And if you notice what's lacking in this case against Shannon Sharp, criminal charges, which make no sense to me because the statute of limitations has not ran out on an alleged sexual assault / rape that occurred in January 2025. Why were the police not called? If it was worth $50 million civilly, why is it not worth criminal charges to this Jane Doe? I don't know. It doesn't mean it didn't happen, but it's definitely something to be called into question. And it's a dramatic difference between the Diddy case and the Shannon Sharp case. Can she still bring criminal charges? Sure. Did she try and maybe didn't have any evidence? It's possible. I don't know. And keep in mind, the burden of proof on criminal charges is much less than civil charges. Case in point, O.J. Simpson, convicted civilly, but was found innocent criminally. Now, I think the evidence was there both ways, but that's just my opinion. But now, I would imagine Shannon Sharp doesn't want to settle this case because he wants to clear his name if he indeed didn't do this. But the truth of the matter is, he doesn't want to go on trial either. I mean, trial for something like this, that's a 1.5 year process. And you're going to have all this testimony come out. And even if he's wrongfully accused, you're going to find out a lot of personal shit that needs to stay in the bedroom about Shannon Sharp. And it sounds like reading these texts, they got a little freaky every now and then. It would just become a PR nightmare. And it would cost him an assload of money in future revenue just based off of the accusation, even if he didn't do it. And it's a conundrum because in our justice system, there's a flaw with the everyday person. These days, if someone accuses you, there's people out there, they're going to believe you did something, even when you didn't do it, before you went on trial for it, even if you're found not guilty. Guaranteed. It's just the way human beings' brains work. I'll keep you posted on any further information that comes out, and I'm sure there'll be a lot, but I don't see this thing ever going to trial. I think that eventually this case is going to get settled and they're going to find a settlement somewhere in between $500,000 and $50 million. That's what I think. It's just not worth it on Shannon Sharp's side. Now, $50 million, you better believe he's going to take that to trial. $500,000, maybe even $1 million. He may just pay it just to get her to go away, even if he didn't do it. That's the sad part of the justice system sometimes. So I hope you enjoyed this, I guess I'll call it emergency podcast. I didn't expect to do it, but I jumped right on it as soon as I saw it and I had to release it. And that's all I have for you today. This is the most up-to-date information as of this recording. Thank you so much to our celebrity members on Patreon. If you'd like to support what we're doing, we give all kinds of benefits to our Patreon celebrity members. Check us out at patreon.com/exposed podcast files. And until next time, for Exposed Scandalous Files of the Elite, I'm your host, Jim Chapman. Much love.